What is this? Anybody?
Weapon.
What do you do with it? Who
Target.
said weapon?
It's me.
How
You
are
are
you
the
guys?
weapon. That's an extension.
Us ladies know this as a weapon, right? You guys think food. We know we can take this, we can take care of business. U.S. Law Shield uses as a weapon if you have used this in self-defense. Somebody comes into your home, you're frying up some bacon, and they're not supposed to be there. We're going to ruin your bacon because it's going to go all over the floor. But you could use this, and we're going to defend you. That's all I have to say.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Great. I'm really excited for our next guest, Larry Schweikert. He's got some great books back here in the back, but I would just like to introduce him. I'm going to read a brief bio, and then we're going to turn the rest of the time for the evening over to Larry. Larry Schweikert, he is a native Arizonan. He graduated from ASU with a bachelor's in political science. He then went on the road with several different rock bands, opening for such 60s and 70s acts as Steppenwolf. He switched gears in 1976, receiving a master's from ASU in history, then a PhD from University of California, Santa Barbara. From 1985 to 2016, he taught at the University of Dayton. He is the co-author with Michael Allen of the New York Times #1 bestseller, A Patriots History of the United States, now in its 31st printing. Patriot History remains the best-selling homeschool history textbook in America and is featured in numerous college courses as an antidote to Howard Zinn's People's History. And he has those books in the back, by the way. He appeared on media he has appeared in media from Al Jazeera to Glenn Beck, from Travis Smiley to Rush Limbaugh. Since 2009, he's been a film producer. His documentary, Rocking the Wall, which appeared on PBS, and the sequel, Other Walls to Fall. In 2019, he founded the Wild World of History curriculum website, which is now available as a full curriculum for U.S. and world history for grades K through 12, providing full lessons with video instruction. So, I mean, you'd think you have a little bit more ambition to do some things, but anyway, we'll turn the time over to Larry, and we are excited to hear from him.
Hi all. I was going to talk to you about my new book, Dragon Slayers, but after I kind of got the gist of what this group is, I've never spoken to you before. I'm going to ditch that. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about why America's exceptional. The 4 pillars of American exceptionalism from Patriots history. So let me give you a little background. I know they were this thing. So, born here in Arizona, lived in Higley all my young life when there was nothing there but a bar, North Corner Tavern, which my dad visited. I got my first drink at age 5. I said, I want to try that beer. He slid a Pabst Blue Ribbon down to me. One swig, spit it out, and I've never drank again in my life. I don't know if that's the way you go or anyway, I graduated Chandler High School. And I went to Arizona State University, got a BA in political science, most useless piece of paper I ever got in my life. I then went on the road with a rock band for several years, and it was mentioned we opened for Steppenwolf, the James Gang, Savoy Brown, hung out with the Allman Brothers. I'll never forget one night at the Tropicana Motel in Santa Monica Boulevard, California. I'm standing out by a pop machine. Green Corvette comes screaming up. Stops right in front of me. This guy with blonde hair down here gets out. It was Greg Allman. And he's so wasted, he's trying to put a quarter in the pop machine and he can't do it. I say, here, Greg, let me help you. I put it in. Wow, thanks, man. Later he said he only made 2 big mistakes in life. One was doing drugs and the other was marrying the sheriff. So anyway, rock and roll. hard life, and you know, we weren't at plane level where we could fly in and have everything set up. And so I wanted to get off the road, play rock and roll at night, but I wanted an easy gig. And I thought teaching would be easy, right? Any teachers here? I thought teaching would be easy. So I went back to school to ASU to get a teaching certificate. So they're doing the checklist, and you need an education class. I go, okay. You don't have a U.S. history class. You need a history class to teach social studies in Arizona. And here I graduated with a BA in political science from a major American university and didn't have a U.S. history. So I took a 6-week summer class that absolutely changed my life. I had an uber conservative Jew. He was almost Orthodox. He called himself to the right of Barry Goldwater, right? And in 6 weeks, I said, I want to be that guy. And I immediately changed everything. By the way, I had horrible grades at ASU because I was playing music all the time. So I applied for a master's program at ASU, and they go, you know you got terrible grades, right? I said, yeah. And so Lowenberg vouched for me. He got me in. So I got a master's from ASU. First semester I was here, they had me write a term paper for some class. Well, it won the national prize for the best paper in America. They go, we'll keep this guy. Yeah, we'll keep him for a while. Okay, next semester I wrote another paper, won the prize for the best paper in America 2 years in a row. So they did me a favor when I got my master's degree. They said, we're going to kick you out because we can't get you a job. You've got to go to a better university and get you a job. So Lou Tams, who was Reagan's ambassador to Columbia, got me a place at UC Santa Barbara. Right after that, sure enough, my advisor got me a job on one phone call in hell, better known to you as Wisconsin. And I went from 120 degrees to 10 below zero for 10 straight days in Wisconsin. After that, I ended up at the University of Dayton. Well, at UD, I started to write books because I believed them when they said publish or perish, right? So I started writing books. Nobody read them because I'm writing like history of banking in the American South from the age of Jackson to Reconstruction, right? All running on the ground. So after about 15 years, I said, you know, I want to write stuff that people will read. So around 2000, Mike Allen and I started work on this. We didn't think we were going to get a publisher. We thought we were going to have to bind it down at FedEx and sell it out of the back of a van along with plastic straws and other banned items. You know, plastic straws. To the United States. But we did get a publisher, Penguin. Came out in 2004, did okay, did pretty well. And got written up by the Wall Street Journal, and even the New York Times reviewed it. They didn't like it. They reviewed it, you know. And I know. And Rush Limbaugh interviewed me for the Limbaugh letter sometime around then and allowed us to reprint the whole interview in our second edition, which is pretty cool. But, you know, we're just coasting along. I wrote some other books during that time. And then in 2010, I was invited on the Glenn Beck show. And I gave Glenn a copy of the book. And he looks at it and he goes, do I know this book? I know this book. Do I know it? Well, clearly he hadn't read it because the proper reaction is, this is a great book. So I get a call 2 days later from Glenn. He said, Larry, when you were on the show, I hadn't read your book. I said, it's okay, Glenn, I know. No, I always read the guest book. I read this over the weekend. This is a great book. And he started holding it up every night, 4 or 5 times on the show. He kept it on his desk the whole time, face out like this. And right away, we go to the top of Amazon, and I get a call from the publisher. Publisher says, Larry, your book's going to be on the New York Times list this week. Well, way to go. Good. Next week, another call. Your book's going to be in the top 10 of the New York Times. I said, woo, next week, I get the call. I can hear him partying over the speakerphone. Woo-hoo! You know, woo! Larry, your book's going to be #1 on the New York Times. I said, good, way to go. So, you know, it's going to be #1 on the New York Times. Yeah, I heard that. Oh, look, it's going to be in Target, it's going to be in Costco, it's going to be in Walmart. I said, wait a minute. Our book's going to be in Walmart? Thank you, Jesus. Because what? It meant it was fine. I was finally writing something that was getting out to everybody. So, we looked at what made America exceptional. Around this time, there was a lot of talk, Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, and other people were talking about American exceptionalism. But nobody ever defined it. And I guarantee you're not going to find a definition anywhere. So we started looking at what really makes America exceptional. And we came up with what we called 4 pillars of American exceptionalism that no other nation today has, even better. No other nation in human history has ever had these 4. Pillar number 1. America has a Christian, mostly Protestant, religious tradition. Now, I say that not for reasons of theology, but because the Puritans who came over were congregational. They were bottom up in their church government. No other nation in the world had that. Because you see, England, from whom the Puritans left, were Anglican. And the Anglicans are not a Protestant faith. What are they protesting against? Henry VIII wanted a honey. You know, that's not a theological issue, right? So you can't find any other religion that is bottom up like that in terms of church governance. That alone is a major, major difference from any other nation, let alone a nation that had that from its very origins. Pillar number 2, common law. Common law came over to England from the Germanic tribes, and it said basically that God, or if you're from the Pentecostal background, God, duh. Jesus is 3 syllables in Pentecostal. God, Jesus. Okay? So God, duh, puts the law in the hearts of the people, and the people elect or select rulers or leaders to carry out or enforce that law. How far are we today from that? Right? So, the rest of the world at that time had top down. That's bottom up. Now we have 2 pillars that are both bottom up. Nobody else has one. We have 2. And all the rest of the world is top down. Whether you're talking about divine right of kings, right? God puts the law in the hands of the king, and he tells everybody what to do. Later, this guy comes along named Napoleon, and he takes the divine right of kings and he secularizes it. Turns it into something called civil law, right? And wherever France went, wherever they conquered, which was most of Europe, civil law followed. And guess what all of those countries did when they set up colonies? They used civil law. Except for Sharia law and some forms of Japanese law, basically most of the world is civil law. Even the British colonies. Because you see, the Brits did not govern their colonies with common law because they didn't trust the colonists. In Africa, for example, they kept saying, well, they're just not quite ready for independence, right? And they govern them top down. So folks, you ready for this? How many of you during the pandemic said, well, I don't get why the Australians and the Canadians and the New Zealanders, these are democracies. Why are they behaving like tyrannies? Have we thought that, right? You know why? They don't have history of common law. Their history is top-down dominion status. They were ordered around by the Brits. So it didn't shock me at all that the Australians were locking everybody up. The third pillar is private property with written titles and deeds. Very important. There's a lot of places in Africa that have private property, but they don't have written titles and deeds. So, this is so important that even before the Constitution, we established this in law. Something called the Land Ordinance of 1785, which I think is probably the most important law ever passed in America. Because the Land Ordinance of 1785, all Jefferson's ideas, he didn't write it, but it's all his ideas. Jefferson believed we should get the land out of the hands of government as quickly as possible. And he even created all these weird states like Mesopotamia and all these other weird things, right? But the idea was get the land out of the hands of government, or to paraphrase Ronald Reagan, government. Get the land out of the hands of government and get it into the hands of the people. So, Land Ordinance 1785 said, we're going to set up a survey for this territory we call the Old Northwest. That'd be Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin. Okay? We're going to start a survey out by Portsmouth, Ohio. And we're going to survey the land in nice, beautiful squares called sections and townships. And we're going to sell off all the land in Section 1. And when that's full, we'll sell off all the land in Section 2. And they didn't want people running out to Section 15 and 25 and 30, right? For Indians, because of Indian protection. They want to have concentrations of people so they can protect against Indian raids. But, you know, they start selling off the land. We're Americans. I'm American, damn it. Nobody gonna tell me where I go settle. I'll go out there. Nobody can keep me off that land. And they go out and they start settling Section 12 and Section 22. So now we have our first clash between private property with written titles and deeds and common law. Because common law says what? The people know what's right, and they elect people to carry that out. So Congress said, all right, people know what's right. So we're going to pass a law called preemption. And preemption says, if you go settle on a piece of land, and you stay there for 7 years, and you build something, a farm or house, can't be a little Lego house, you can't run all over the prairie dropping little Lego house, it's got to be a real house. Stay there 7 years, you can submit a title deed to the government, and the government will ratify that, and that's your land. We call it squatters' rights. And in fact, it's so powerful, you can go settle on private property. You know, they got these ranches in Texas that are as big as Rhode Island. You know, they're giant ranches. And you can go out in one of these ranches and settle, and if the guy doesn't ride his fences, if he doesn't go out and check to see if there's people squatting out there, and you manage to stay for 7 years, you have a little deed, the government will say, that's your land. That's your land. The last one is a free market economy. Now, the first time we wrote this, I was thinking in terms of 1776 and the wealth of nations. And Adam Smith's ideas came over. Really, America didn't get Smith's concepts of free enterprise until about the late 1780s, 1790s. Alexander Hamilton was a mercantilist. He was not a free marketeer. But then I found out about the mill at Plymouth. And in 1630, farmers were growing so much corn and other stuff there, they couldn't mill it themselves. So they asked one of their number, look, Bill, if we pay you in food, would you quit farming and do nothing but mill for everybody else? And they set up the first mill in America. You know, and as a result, we had division of labor. Now, when I mentioned private property, I forgot to tell you this. You do understand that America started off as a socialist country, right? Yeah. That both Jamestown and Plymouth were set up along socialist lines. So the Jamestown colony comes ashore, you know, and Captain Smith is there, and they had a common barrel of corn, and then they had common lands called the commons. And people would go out and they were supposed to work as hard as they could on the commons, but only take what they needed from the barrel of corn. Of course, that never works. People get lazy, they don't go to work, they eat a lot of corn, and get fat. So, of course, they start to starve. And after about 1 year, they have something called the starving time. I've read about this, that people were, about half the population died. They were eating shoelaces and rats and dung and rocks. My wife and I love these cooking shows like Chopped. Where they say you open the market basket of goods, you know, and open your baskets. We have a rock, shoelaces, a rat, and dung. And they say, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a nice rat puree over a rock soup, you know. Anyway, after a couple of years, Smith goes, this won't work. And so he hands out grain to everybody. He says, here's your land, your land, your land, your land. Get out of here. There's no more common stuff. He who will not work will not eat. They did the same exact thing in Plymouth. Governor Carter, after 1 year, says this isn't working. We're not growing enough food because people are lazy. Here's your land, here's your land, here's your corn, your corn. And William Bradford, who was not governor yet, he was still a young man, he wrote that when they adopted socialism, it was like we were wiser than God. And as a result, what did they have after the first year of private property? A surplus. They had an abundance. And so they held a feast called Thanksgiving. And they invited the Indians to thank God for the abundance. And they invited their friends. They invite the Indians to thank the Indians. They thanked God for the abundance and invited the Indians. So those are the 4 pillars of American exceptionalism. And that's kind of in the introduction to this book and several others I've written so that people really kind of understand them. All right. Just one other little thing, and then we'll do some questions. In 2016, I had been doing a lot of data work in terms of voter registration analysis on a site called Free Republic. Any freepers in here? Okay, Free Republic's a great site. We were doing all these voter registration analysis, and it became pretty clear to me early in 2015 that Trump was onto something. In fact, I was vacationing with my wife. I was still teaching at UD, and we were at the Arizona Grant. And I remember that Trump was supposed to give a talk at the Phoenician, and all of a sudden they shifted it to the convention center because so many people were coming. And I sat up in bed and I went, this is weird. Because normally you don't see people opening up new venues for politicians, right? So I began to follow. So anyway, by mid-16, I'm doing all this voter registration analysis in Arizona and Florida and Ohio and Iowa and North Carolina. And we were looking at these numbers, especially later in 16 when it came to early voting, and we're going, wait a minute, Trump's going to win these states. And so I knew Steve Bannon for a long time, and I started sending him emails every morning. Hey, have you been watching these voter numbers? Yeah. Send an email. I always send him a text. Send an email. So I sent him an email. So, long story short, by the end of 2016, by about October, I decided I was going to write a book. I don't have it here with me. It's called How Trump Won. Won, past tense. It's October. I said Trump won the election with between 300 and 320 electoral votes. How they did? 306 was the final. Okay? And so the book came out. I was giving a talk at Turning Point USA in Florida. And I was just leaving. Just after I left, Trump came in. And somebody gave Trump a copy of How Trump Won. And they took a picture of him holding up How Trump Won. So I continued to do this voter analysis, registration stuff. And in 2020, we did a live election night coverage, so you don't have to watch Fox. I did it with Richard Barris, who's the #1 pollster in America. He nailed 2016. And he was pretty good in 2020, especially because of the fraud. And we did a 5-hour live election night broadcast. I think we're going to do it again this election night. We had 1 million viewers, which was more than CNN had, on our little webcast. So anyway, I'll open it up to questions. Questions, comments, throw stuff. Yes, ma'am.
So you claim that it's all from the Puritans. Why do we call this Judeo-Christian?
Well, it's kind of a trend that goes back to the notion that the Bible stems from the Hebrews, right? But what makes Plymouth different from Jamestown, which was an Anglican colony, is the fact that it is a Protestant colony. The Hebrews don't have that tradition. Well, no? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did you ever examine why the early colonists were anti-Catholic and wanted to get rid of them and send them to Canada and not allow them to be elected to office?
Right. Because A, they were Puritans, and B, they were Puritans, and C, they were Puritans. Okay. Remember, they thought the Church of England was corrupt. So look, all Puritans are not pilgrims, right? The pilgrims were the Puritans who thought England was so corrupt they couldn't stay there. So they went to Holland, which is like Las Vegas, and they realized, no, that's probably not a good place for us. So then they came to America. But this is very interesting. Almost immediately, you start to get splits within the Puritan church, and Roger Williams and Hutchison. And so pretty soon they start saying, well, if we're going to allow these Baptists down here, we might as well allow Quakers in Pennsylvania. I guess the Catholics are all right too. So you get a Catholic colony, but so few Catholics wanted to come over to Maryland that they ended up inviting in the Puritans. How wild was that? But who else? I saw another hand over there. Yes, sir.
So you said you know Bannon, you talked to him on the January 6th, and then he goes to court in June for the subpoena stuff. Do you hear any kind of updates on
No,
that?
he can't say anything about that, except he sure doesn't seem worried about it. He's going on offense. He's demanding documents from them, and I love it. He's just suing the pants off these people. I think they messed with the wrong guy there. He just doesn't think they can hurt him. We'll see. Yes, ma'am.
A little bit about the 1871 Constitution.
1871 Constitution. You got me. Give me a...
Well, it has to do with bringing in admiralty and maritime law.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know that we have this phrase in the Constitution that says Congress, not President, can assign letters of marque, M-A-R-Q-U-E, and reprisal. Did you know that? Did you know Congress can empower military forces? You can send out privateers, which I'm surprised this Congress hasn't done that with this Ukraine war. I'm really shocked they haven't done this. Don't give Botoxic any ideas. By the way, I have nicknames for all the people. Nancy Pelosi's Botoxic. Mitch McConnell is Yerbil. It takes a second. You don't want to know too many. Some of them aren't too good. Occasional Cortex, well, you know who she is. So that's all I would know about that. I'd have to check into the stuff about that. Did you have a point about that?
Just curious how that's into things. I've heard different people say that Trump undid what was done in 1871.
I don't see that happen. I didn't see that happen.
What was the question?
Her question is the 1871 Constitution, and that Trump undid something about 1871.
But that was actually what was behind January 6th.
And I don't know about that. I for one, never, ever thought that that was going to be overturned once it got out of the state legislature. It was a done deal once it got out of the state legislature. The time to stop it was before the states certified. Well, that's prophecy. That's not history. Karnak says. Well, I was just reading data. And I will tell you this from reading data, they're going to get an ass kicking in November. It's going to be. Right now, we've got, I just did 4 polls today, looked at 4 different ones. The generic ballot is a low of 2 and a high of 13. I don't believe it's 13, but Barris has the generic ballot as Republicans plus 7.7. Okay, in 2010, it was 6 points. So this would suggest 60 seats or more. And we're hearing a lot about redistricting. I was just speaking the other night. I had a great speaker on redistricting here in Arizona. Arizona's going to go from 5-4 Democrat to at least 5-4 Republican, probably 6-3. And the last district that's out there was a Biden plus 7. Well, in this election, I think anything that's Biden plus 10 is up for grabs, because it's going to be a red wave election. Now, the Senate's a little different. We're going to be lucky to come out with 3-4. I'm sure we'll get 2, but getting 3 or 4 is going to be a little tougher. The House is going to be a massive, and it's going to go all the way down to dog catch right there.
So there's a question back there. How does all your analysis fit in with the voting machines?
Okay.
How do you, you've got A, and then you've got B, that seems to overpower A.
No. Well, in some ways it does. The whole thing with the fraud, and I do believe there was fraud, is like a magician. We know they cheated. We just haven't quite figured it out. We haven't figured out the trick yet. Right? But Arizona has machines and paper backup. And that's really, really hard to cheat. Now, we have found that they had 17,000 duplicates. And there's another thing that just came out today about another 13,000. So that's 30,000. But now you're back to this. How do you prove that those 17,000 were all for Viking? Or as I call them the demented burger, or the rutabaga. Okay?
Well, it could be another fire.
Right. Right. I know. Well, it's 50. The real number's about 57,000. But again, you've got to be able to go back and prove that those people voted for Biden and not Trump. And that's the trick, because we have secret ballot in America, right? So until you get to that point, you've got a problem. Now, Ducey signed a whole bunch of laws today, really good stuff. Why did he wait till today to do it? You know, but anyway, one more over here, guys. Getting the hook. Get that there.
So I read that there's a House bill, I can't remember the name of it, introduced into the Arizona House, where they're going to publicize everybody's name and address that is a registered voter. And they will put a portion of your social security number with that registration. And this is all going to be on the Arizona State website for people to go look at.
Well, like you said, it's been introduced in the House. They introduced a lot of stuff in the House. Let's see if the House passes it. I can't.
It was introduced by Republicans, by the way.
Well, but there's Republicans and there's Boyer and Michelle Gingeria or whatever. There's yahoos and then there's Republicans.
Rhinos and dinos.
Picture was in that list.
Who introduced it? Well, I'll have to talk to him. I know Mark. I'll ask him about it. Okay. All right. I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Tell us about your new book real quick.
Dragons Under 6 Presidents and Their War with the Swamp. I look at the real enemy, which is not certain elected politicians. They're a big part of it. But I look at the deep state and the administrative state, which goes all the way back to Martin Van Buren in 1828. And I look at how different presidents attacked different parts of the swamp. 3 were fairly successful: Lincoln in the slave swamp, Cleveland in the spoil swamp, TR in the trust swamp. 3 pretty much failed. That would be Kennedy in the CIA swamp, Reagan in the bureaucracy swamp, and Trump in the deep state swamp.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you again for being here tonight. Thank you for your donations. We saw that jar going around, and we really, really appreciate that. Just so you know, next week's speaker, it is going to be absolutely epic. You do not want to miss next week. Bring your friends, neighbors, family, kids, anybody you want to bring. Let's pack this house. Who knows who our speaker is next week? Yes, you are exactly right. It is Shane Krauser for a full 70 minutes. Yeah, it is going to be absolutely incredible. So if you've not been here for a full hour of Shane Krauser, then you are in for a treat. I mean, imagine what we got tonight plus, another 35 minutes. And again, thank you, Larry. Larry's got a great stack of books, materials in the back. Joe, you want to come on up? And just so you guys know, Joe is a co-founder of the group. And if you don't know Joe, he is basically known by everybody in the Valley. So I just wanted to let Joe kind of close it out tonight.
Again, thank you all for coming. We definitely appreciate it. And please go see, like with Lockfield US,
lawn shoulders back there. So please, if you guys have any interest in that, if you do, like she was saying, even they will represent you any type of legal confrontation that you're in, and they will represent you. You know, deadly use of force, they will represent you. So anyway, talk to Cynthia back there. They've been great for us. They've kind of helped us out financially, helped us get this building again. It costs us money every week, so we appreciate the donation. So thank you so much. And go look at the little the Let's Go brand or Let's Go bracelets back there. So and Shane's book. So again, we just appreciate you guys being here. This is fantastic. So thank you so much. And please do tell a friend. You know, we don't want this to burst into an echo chamber, but we do want people here that we would love to educate. You know, we'd love Shane to educate people on the Constitution. It is a truly divine, inspired document, and that is what we want to express, but we want other people. So anybody and everybody, please invite them. We'd love to have them out. And again, just thank you all for being here. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Oh, you're gonna have to do a lot more than one Saturday, my friend. It's gonna be several Saturdays. It's gonna have to be a lifetime. Remember, you don't become a surgeon in one class.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, once